any such criticism regarding the liberties here should be aimed at a different direction. Russia, perhaps, where dissent is banned, where free media is banned, where political opposition is banned, where X or Twitter, as we know it, is in fact also banned.
Speaking to diplomats accredited to the Holy See January 9th, Pope Leo said that language has become increasingly ambiguous and weaponized, undermining clear realities, authentic dialogue, and diplomacy's role in preventing conflict.
Today, the meaning of words is ever more fluid, and the concepts they represent are increasingly ambiguous. Language is no longer the preferred means by which human beings come to know and encounter one another. Moreover, in the contortions of semantic ambiguity, language is becoming more and more a weapon with which to deceive or to strike and offend opponents. We need words once again to express distinct and clear realities unequivocally. Only in this way can authentic dialogue resume without misunderstandings. This should happen in our homes and public spaces, in politics, in the media, and on social media. It should likewise occur in the context of international relations and multilateralism, so that the latter can regain the strength needed for undertaking its role of encounter and mediation. This is indeed necessary for preventing conflicts and for ensuring that no one is tempted to prevail over others with a mindset of force, whether verbal, physical, or military. We should also note the paradox that this weakening of language is often invoked in the name of freedom of expression itself. However, on closer inspection, the opposite is true, for freedom of speech and expression is guaranteed precisely by the certainty of language and the fact that every term is anchored in the truth. It is painful to see how, especially in the West, the space for genuine freedom of expression is rapidly shrinking. At the same time, a new Orwellian-style language is developing, which, in an attempt to be increasingly inclusive, ends up excluding those who do not conform to the ideologies that are fueling it. Unfortunately, this leads to other consequences that end up restricting fundamental human rights, starting with the freedom of conscience. In this regard, conscientious objection allows individuals to refuse legal or professional obligations that conflict with moral, ethical, or religious principles deeply rooted in their personal lives. This may be the refusal of military service in the name of nonviolence, or the refusal on the part of doctors and healthcare professionals to engage in practices such as abortion or euthanasia. Conscientious objection is not rebellion, but an act of fidelity to oneself. At this moment in history, freedom of conscience seems increasingly to be questioned by states, even those that claim to be based on democracy and human rights. This freedom, however, establishes a balance between the collective interest and individual dignity. It also emphasizes that a truly free society does not impose uniformity, but protects the diversity of consciences, preventing authoritarian tendencies and promoting an ethical dialogue that enriches the social fabric.
I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents.
I believe in the freedom of speech.
We have to ask ourselves the questions as leaders. Are we willing to defend people even if we disagree with what they say? If you're not willing to do that, I don't think you're fit to lead Europe or the United States of America.
I want you to think for a minute about the decades of abuse that has been heaped upon the good people of this nation, takes away the right to free speech, the right to political expression.
Well, I heard his speech, and I tell you, you're talking about J.D.'s speech, right?
Yes, sir.
I heard his speech, and he talked about freedom of speech, and I think it's true in Europe. It's losing. They're losing their wonderful right of freedom of speech. I see it. I mean, I thought he made a very good speech, actually, a very brilliant speech. Yeah. Europe has to be careful. And he talked about immigration. And Europe has a big immigration problem. Just take a look at what's happened with crime. Take a look at what's happening in various parts of Europe. I thought his speech was very well received, actually. I've heard very good remarks.
And in regards to
In his remarks at the Munich Security Conference, Vice President Vance condemned free speech violations in the UK. Particularly, could you respond? What is your message?
I have an idea. We have the man right here. Come on. Let's go, JD. We're putting you on stage.
Great. Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies. But we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British, of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
Europe is heading in the wrong direction, says U.S. President Donald Trump, referring to the penalty imposed by the European Commission on the American social media platform X. The Americans accuse Eurocrats of attacking freedom of speech, as they also wrote in their national security strategy. Do Brussels' decisions mean another chapter in the conflict with its American ally? It is difficult to imagine a world without social media today. Just yesterday, we used posts on Platform X several times in our news program, but the European Commission says no and imposes heavy fines on X. U.S. President Donald Trump commented on the situation.
Bill on the floor, sir.
Do you have any reaction on the fine that was imposed to X by the European Union?
For what?
To X, to the Platform X, the fine that the European Union...
Pretty amazing. You're talking about, is that European Union or is it... Who did that? European Union or UK?
Yeah, the European Commission.
Whoa, that's a nasty one.
Do you consider it an attack?
Elon has not called me to ask for help on that one. But no, it's a tough thing. I don't think it's right. No, I don't think it's right. I don't see, how they can do that. No, I'll speak about it later. I'm going to get a full report on it. Look, Europe has to be very careful. They're doing a lot of things. We want to keep Europe. Europe is going in some bad directions. It's very bad for the people. We don't want Europe to change so much. They're going in some very bad directions. That was a big thing.
You directed a review of the child...
Elon Musk, the owner of the X platform, echoed his sentiments, repeatedly criticizing European institutions on social media over the past few days. How long before the EU is gone? Abolish the EU. The storm was triggered by a €120 million fine imposed on Platform X by the European Commission.
X has indeed breached its transparency obligation under the DSA. This includes X's blue checkmark. It deceives users.
But Americans see these decisions not as a defense of social media users, but as an attack on freedom of speech.